Good evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you find yourself to watch or listen to this. It's me, Omar. I'm back again, and this time with another guest. We have Brock Vierra of the Midnight Sports Network, and he tweets about Hawaii football, writes about it too, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Yeah, so we'll drop that link in the description for this video. But I'm excited to have Brock on just to discuss a very wild idea. But before we start, Brock, is there anything you want to say to open this up?
Yeah, no, just thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm a really passionate fan about Hawaii football. Even though I write about it, that's the reason why I write about it, because I'm so passionate about it. It's a lot of fun to be able to be here and talk about the program that I love.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, Hawaii is like one of those programs that has a surprisingly big fan base. Just everything, just taking into account, like the midnight games, the late Robert K. Kala, rest in peace, and whatnot. And of course, like the Hawaii Bowls too, the numerous Hawaii Bowl appearances on Christmas Eve. I mean, Hawaii is probably is one of the biggest brands in the group of five, despite all that it has going against it, of course, not being on the mainland. So excited to talk some Hawaii football too. I'm a little bit of a Hawaii fan too. I mean, I got to say, like, I'm part of that Hawaii, that I guess interested party, I guess, without being interested, or I guess without a reason to be invested, So I'm excited about this. But the main. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something, Brock?
No, man, continue. I'm happy to talk to a fellow UH fan.
My bad. But the main discussion point of our discussion here is an article by Stephen Tsai, a writer for the Honolulu Star Advertiser, who proposed last week that Hawaii have marquee games played in Las Vegas. And if you're scratching your head like Brock and I, there is a good reason. But just for, I guess, background for why this idea most likely came to be is Hawaii and Las Vegas have a sort of intertwined tradition with each other, and I guess intertwined history with one another. As Hawaiians have found Las Vegas to be a top tourist spot. I know it seems crazy that Hawaiians would want to leave the island, but you need to change the scenery, sometimes. So so it's considered the ninth island for that reason. And I think since I want to say 2015 or so, they've played for the Ninth Island Trophy, or, as many people know it better, the Pineapple Trophy, the giant pineapple. So sort of a rivalry going for those schools. And it's good to see Hawaii have a rival, in the Mountain West now after leaving the WAC about 10 years ago. So, Brock, what were your initial thoughts regarding this article?
Well, I mean, I can attest to, the mass exodus of people from Hawaii to Las Vegas. I mean, I'm one of them. I'm in Las Vegas right now. I went to UNLV because there's a lot of opportunities for me to go. It made sense financially. And from a cultural standpoint, I could assimilate here very easily because of the Hawaii populace that already exists here. I get where Mr. Sai is coming from, definitely, when it comes to the stadium idea. I know it's only for marquee football games, but I'm just giving my perspective as one a UNLV graduate and somebody who's been to Sam Boyd Stadium. I graduated on that field. That stadium is horrible. It's really bad. It's awful. I'm sorry. That's the only way to put it. If you look at pictures of the stadium, it doesn't even wrap around all the way. The locker room is like this own independent building in the end zone. It's like wide open. You can literally walk onto the field anytime if you want. Packing with security. And quite frankly, I don't see a reason why Hawaii fans in Hawaii should lose their football team. I mean, it's a privilege to be able to watch the team up here because I don't live there. That's Hawaii's football team. It's for Hawaii's people, and I think that's how it should remain.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous too, considering the I guess the financial straits of the program in recent years, as it took literally Aloha Stadium being condemned for Hawaii to start building a new stadium. And I mean, they haven't even started yet with this new complex that is going to be so expensive. But yeah, the idea that came from Mr. Tsai's article wasn't even play games at Allegiant Stadium. It's at Sam Boyd too. And Sam Boyd served his purpose, notably in the 2020 season, as a sort of like disaster, as a sort of a home for the homeless Mountain West teams. Probably the last great moment. It's kind of funny how that stadium had its last great moment on the third Saturday of December. Like, so many weekends with the Las Vegas Bowl, with that Mountain West title game with San Jose State winning their first league title. It was a fitting end for Sam Boyd Stadium, and I'd like that to be the last game played at Sam Boyd Stadium. No offense to anybody that has any ties or I guess, emotional ties to that stadium. But I'd like that to be the last game played. But if anything, you'd want to play a marquee game at a marquee venue like, Allegiant Stadium, the big Roomba. So, I mean, it's really a wild idea too. I mean, because if you consider it, the games that he's thinking about are Pac-12 games, and in my opinion, like the Pac-12 fans are probably overly familiar with Las Vegas, especially if you're an Oregon fan, or will be, because especially if you're an Oregon fan, maybe UCLA, who Hawaii also plays in the coming years too, like because the Pac-12 title games there. So I guess sort of the magic kind of wears off. But looking at the opponents that Hawaii is bringing in, the Power Five opponents, just going down the list, do you think any of these teams would sort of, I guess, overfill Clarence T.C. Ching Stadium's capacity?
Uh, I think so. It's definitely because Clarence TC Ching is a small stadium, and you got to consider the fact that for a typical Hawaii fan, they're not going to be able to afford to go to every game. So you're going to want to pick and choose, and those are the best matchups where you're going to see the best coaching, the best talent, everything like that. I see no reason why, especially now with COVID restrictions in Hawaii being pretty much lifted at this point, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. I don't believe there's a vaccine mandate to enter TC Ching. With all that being said, I don't see a reason why Oregon or UCLA game wouldn't sell out the stadium.
And I do agree. And I mean, it's interesting too, because one might look at Vanderbilt too being a Power Five program, but I mean, how many fans from Vanderbilt are going to make the trek to Hawaii? That's also another factor too, because I think interest from the teams themselves too. And another aspect of this is these fans see these games on the schedule like years ahead. Like when this game was scheduled, no one knew that Aloha Stadium would have to be condemned. So they're assuming that, no kicks, like this game would be an easy ticket. But Oregon, UCLA, Stanford fans, like they want to go to Hawaii. Like they don't want to go to Las Vegas. Like they look at that schedule. It's like they're playing at Hawaii, not at Hawaii, at Las Vegas. Unless go ahead, Brock.
No, you're absolutely correct. And question like that, I don't want to sound like a prude or anything, but I personally don't even care what Oregon or UCLA fans or Stanford fans want to feel or anything. Alabama doesn't care what Auburn fans or Tennessee fans want when they go visit Bryant Denny. When Texas and Oklahoma fill out the Cotton Bowl, they're not worried about, are we having enough seats for Oklahoma fans if they're Texas? Do you have enough seats for Texas fans or Oklahoma? No one cares about that. You know what I'm saying? And Hawaii, though, it would be cool to have some Oregon fans, everything like that, come into the islands and enjoy. It's about maintaining the fan base with the people that already live there, the Hawaii supporters, and making sure that the Hawaii players feel that fan base, not having to come up to Vegas and split Allegiant Stadium, which more is probably going to be a 70-30 split for Oregon or UCLA, because of the ease of travel. So I I just think it should stay at TC Ching for those reasons as well.
I agree. Well, I will offer one caveat on the question. So say that Hawaii was picked to play in the Vegas Kickoff Classic, and they had their first game this past season with BYU in Arizona. And these kickoff games have huge payouts. I couldn't find the payout for the Vegas kickoff game, but the Duke's Mayo Classic between Georgia and Clemson, that was a $5 million payout for each team. So say that I guess the folks at Allegiant Stadium they play to the Hawaiian crowd in Las Vegas and the affinity for Sin City, and they say, all right, let's make Hawaii Stanford or Hawaii Oregon the Vegas Kickoff Classic. Would you be more open as a Hawaii fan to having that happen, or still like the same kind of emotion?
No, absolutely. I think that would be fantastic because the Hawaii fan base in the mainland is very strong. I think that would generate a lot of people because it is only one game and it is at Allegiant Stadium, and Hawaii would get a very nice payout. And it's not uncommon, as you know, to have games like that. Like you just mentioned, like Miami and Alabama kicked off, I believe, in Hard Rock Stadium this year. There was like a big, I forget what it was, or was it Mercedes Benz? Was it? I know Ole Miss and
Mercedes Benz. It was Mercedes Benz. I was at that game. I should know.
very nice.
I
So
should know.
you saw Bryce Young and John Mechie go off. So you seen that. Then I think a couple days later had Ole Miss and Louisville also at that same stadium. So I would like that, especially for Hawaii, considering the fact that they play 13 games a season instead of 12 to help with the cost. They would still be able to have 7 road games, 7 home games, and sorry, not 7, 6 road games, 6 home games, and then one neutral game. I think that would be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, but I think in the end, I think asking Hawaii to move these home games without the backing of, say, a corporate sponsor and a payout where they're paying essentially to run these games, it's a huge loss to the program. So one more thing I want to ask is, I guess the idea of moving games to a different island, like we've seen, well, only once before has Hawaii done this, in playing Montana in 2001 at War Memorial Stadium on Maui. Would you be in favor of that if there is a bigger capacity stadium on another island?
So I would, and I've actually played a high school game when I was in high school. I played at War Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
It's a really nice stadium, beautiful place. Um, but quite frankly, it's really run down. I mean, it's perfect for a high school setting, but for a Division 1 team, one game a year, I guess. I just don't see it being a higher capacity than TC Ching in the next 3 to 5 years, because I know they're going to continue building at TC Ching, and the locker rooms and all the facilities like that. I just don't think they're at D1 standard. So though it might be cool once in a while, I don't think it should be a yearly thing.
I agree. Like one of these FCS games, like the Duquesne game. I think they played Northern Iowa a couple years down the road, but yeah. I mean, shoot, heck, I guess the stadium we built by them, but the Fording game in 2028, and I say that because that's when I'm making my first visit to Hawaii. Hopefully, little 6 years down the road. But I guess one more question that I do want to ask is, with this problem of the stadium of Aloha Stadium and Hawaii sort of making ends meet. Do you see one of these games, I guess, sort of being an Australia game, like a return to the Australia game? Because in 2016, of course, we all remember Hawaii, Cal, and Sydney. Do you see, I guess, the promoters in Australia taking advantage of this and saying, hey, Hawaii, this might be a game that we can move and pay to travel, like, have both teams travel down to Australia.
Yeah, I absolutely do, especially since Hawaii plays week 0 every single season, it seems like, because they have 13 regular season games. I think that'd be awesome, man, especially for a program like Hawaii. I've spoken to people who are from Australia, who coach in Australia, and there's a lot of Australians, either ex rugby players or guys coming from high school, who are looking to play at the D1 level in America. And if Hawaii can infiltrate the market, create an established fan base in Australia by playing there once every year, once every 2 years, I think that would only benefit the program in a positive way.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love the international games too. Like, I mean, we got the Ireland games, we had the Notre Dame Navy game canceled last year, which is such a shame. I feel like that's a perfect game to have in Ireland.
Yes.
If we're up to me, that can be played every other year in Ireland, but it's not up to me. But I mean, it's been a while since we had an Australia game, or since 2017 to be exact. So, maybe this is the window for that to happen instead of Las Vegas, making this an even more marquee game and a more special event too. But I don't think any of these games are scheduled for week 0, but who knows? Maybe some shuffling will, aid that. But yeah, that's all I got. I think this was a very succinct but great discussion, Brock. And anything else you want to add?
Yeah. Quite frankly, if you don't mind, I just like to kind of make a little statement real quick.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
I've had a lot of criticism on this idea, but I think something that maybe Mr. Sai or some of the people that support this idea are forgetting, that this is a college football team, right? These are college students. How are we going to get, when Coach Timmy Chang took over the program from Todd Graham, right? A lot of criticisms was that Todd Graham wasn't keeping the Hawaii boys home, right? So Chang has really invested a lot in keeping Hawaii boys at the program, Pacific, everything. Now you got to send them for home games in Vegas. To me, that doesn't make sense. Financially, you got to fly them up, you got to fly them back. They still got to attend their college courses. They still got to finish the coursework. They're going to be suffering from jet lag every week. You got to pay security, the cops, concessions, parking. Who's going to afford that? Quite frankly, Sam Boyd is in the middle of nowhere. It's 30 minutes from the strip, like 40 minutes from UNLV, unless there's no traffic. Then it's 30. Maybe it's me being cynical. I just don't understand why this idea is more than just something that came into your head and left. It's a very confusing thing for me.
Yeah, no, I enjoy that passionate that passionate I guess discussion that you just brought up, because I mean, yeah, like this is Hawaii's team, and I mean, like, we all saw I guess the ugly sort of soap opera play out, in the offseason with, I guess, earlier this winter with Todd Graham going in front of, the state Senate and everything. And, it was really a tug towards for the program, to stay alive. So yeah, no, that's a great point. You mentioned a Coach Chang, keeping the boys home. There's one word I've seen on my Twitter feed more than anything else, and it's brotherhood, So I've seen that more times than any other word. So yeah, I mean that's a great point too. And in this day and age too, where we're sort of thinking more about the student athlete, but we're still struggling to make that leap too. Like this is counterintuitive to us thinking about the student athlete, having them suffer from jet lag because yeah, it's still the Pacific time zone, but yeah, it's also like 3 hours behind the Pacific time zone still, So great point there. I mean, I really enjoyed that. Anything else, Brock?
Yeah, no, something I just thought about was that, I mean, quite frankly, the state of Hawaii and Hawaii's athletic program hasn't utilized their very unique position as playing Hawaii with the time zones as well. They're the last game of the night, and when they play, they're the only game playing. They move to Las Vegas, they become a small fish in a big pond, with all the other collegiate football games going, right? Especially on the West Coast when they have the Pac-12 after dark, and the Mountain West is such they take up a lot of the airways. So that's another thing that they're giving up if they ever decide to move to Las Vegas for multiple home games. And again, I just really want to hammer this home, man. Like these are still collegiate players. Like they have a bunch of responsibilities that go outside of the football field, And if the program is serious about the true student athlete, I hope that this is literally something they read in a paper and then just laughed about it and moved on with their day. It would be cool for me to be able to see my team up here like all the time, but I think it would literally lead to the death of the program if this continued.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I would go that as far to say that. You of course know more than I do, about the program. But yeah, like it's a very harrowing possibility for sure. And Hawaii can't. I mean, they've already lost the Hula Bowl. Sadly, they can't lose anything else. They can't lose their own team. So. I think that a lot of people, especially the Hawaii leadership, are look at this and say, okay, this is not happening. Absolutely not, unless like we get paid out by a corporate sponsor. Money talks, but otherwise, no. Let's keep it. Let's keep it in Hawaii. And even then, like I feel like Clarence Ching is a more intimate environment. With less fans. I feel like in this time period, if in this period, like transition period, if they can play into that, then I think they'll be set. But yeah, that's just my opinion there.
Absolutely, and like I said, I went to UNLV, and there wasn't really a lot of students attending UNLV football games because Sam Boyd was so far. And I'm not sure how it is now with Allegiant. I'm sure more go because it is Allegiant, but it is a stadium off campus. So you look at the school up north, which is UNR. Their campus is literally right next to the stadium. The students pack the student section so many times. Hawaii had that problem with Aloha Stadium. It was too much of a bus ride. Kids rather have different things to do. There just wasn't that environment or culture. Sorry. Now you got a stadium that's literally adjacent to the parking lot, which feeds into the rest of the campus. I really think that there's going to be a huge benefit for the student section and for just students in general for the program to continue to play at TC Ching with a 5-10 minute walk from campus. People are willing to stay a little later to go watch their team. And when it comes to playing marquee programs like Oregon, UCLA, let's be real now. There's no way Hawaii's going to beat them in Vegas. But yeah, it might be a nice thought, or maybe there might be an upset here and there. But having teams fly into Hawaii is such a unique and distinct advantage that if UH gives up, it kind of makes me question, like, what's the point? And also, if you don't mind me adding, I seen somebody write this on Mr. Sai's article. I want to bring this up. If they're planning on going to Vegas just for money, they might as well make the UCLA games, the Oregon game, road games, and make those universities pay Hawaii at that point anyway, because that's basically what you're doing it if it's for the money. And I can understand if it's a multi-million-dollar payout for sure, but if it's not, then what's the point?
Exactly. And I mean, like less Power Five programs are visiting Hawaii for that reason. I mean, because it is a tough, I mean, it's a tough environment to play in. Like I was watching highlights the other day of the '08 Cincinnati Hawaii game. Like that was a Cincinnati team that was Orange Bowl bound. 10-2 going to the game, and they still struggle with a Hawaii team that was 7-6, barely went to the Hawaii Bowl. Tough environment to play in. We're seeing less Power Five teams like the Michigan game. I would love to see Michigan visit Hawaii, but the last two meetings have been in Ann Arbor. So it's a very valid point you make. Where like Hawaii, even then, like they have less opportunities to have Power Five teams visit the islands. Like why lessen those opportunities further by just making them go to Las Vegas?
Yeah, and you also got to think about it from a visiting program's perspective too. I mean, we all know the daunting schedule collegiate athletes have, especially collegiate football players. And considering a place like Vegas where there's so much things that you can do that can get you into trouble, Hawaii, of course, there's things that you can do out there that get you in trouble. But the biggest things are going to the beach, having the luau, things like that. It's a great opportunity for teams to build camaraderie, to have a little relaxing vacation, have a good time while still being in a safe environment.
No, that's a great point too. Distractions are plenty. I know my co-host Jackson. I think he mentioned about the game being in Vegas, or we talked like me and another writer talked me Jackson another writer talked about the Shrine Bowl. He saw Shrine Bowl moving to Las Vegas and saying like, oh man, this is not good for the pro prospects because all these distractions. So why throw all that other stuff in the pot? Just keep it at home in Hawaii.
I know, absolutely, and you know, we seen we he also got a question like, will the fans even show up? I mean, I don't remember exactly because I might be tripping, but I remember when I was watching Las Vegas Bowl, Arizona State versus Wisconsin. I don't remember there being a plethora of fans being there, so you can't even guarantee that the stadium is even going to be filled. Where at least when you have if you're in Hawaii, you can somewhat guarantee that the student section is going to be packed and that the fans of all ages will show out for it.
Yeah, exactly. Bring the Las Vegas Bowl. Another game comes to mind is the UNLV Iowa State game. Where like going to
Oh
Vegas for
yeah.
like the folks in Ames, like that's a once in a lifetime thing. But they didn't really show. And I mean, honestly, like if I were an Iowa State fan, I would have put money aside for that trip because I mean you had your best season in years, coming off your best season in years and going to Vegas. So again, like I mean it's still that just proves it's a hard trip to make for even if you're Arizona State a few hours away. So yeah, so much going into it. And I feel like we've totally dissected this idea. This horse is beaten dead twice, twice over. But yeah, Brock, if you have anything final to say.
No, I just want to wish Coach Chang and the boys the best of luck as they prepare for the season. I hope I'll be able to be in Hawaii for the Vanderbilt game. I'm really excited to see what Coach Chang and the guys do. Especially with the reintroduction of the modern run and shoot offense. Just want to wish them the best of luck in the preparations and go Bows.
Absolutely. I mean, shoot, as an Army fan, like Hawaii and the run and shoot go together like the service academies and the option.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they're keeping it that way. And those week zero games, against power, especially against the Power Fives, like just electric environments too. Like the 2019 Hawaii Arizona game, one of my favorite games of all time.
Wow,
You
what
know,
a game that was. I mean,
yeah.
Khalil Tate, he showed out as much as he could that game, but I'm so happy that Cole McDonald, I mean, he did throw a couple of interceptions that were highly question mark, but Cole McDonald and the rest of the guys are able to pull out that victory. That was a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, came to the last play. I mean, it was amazing. I remember I was like, stayed up on the East Coast, alone, with my roommate fast asleep, just in the dark, watching intently and quietly reacting, to the final tackle. But I mean, I hope you can make that game too. Have a blast for me. Um, yeah, and I mean that's all I got. And this was great, Brock. I really appreciate you coming on. And until next time, peace, love, and soul.